Do you think that having nuclear weapons in the 21st century still makes sense so that countries do not invade each other? Or would you rather ban all nuclear weapons and disarm every single country that has one? So there is a pretty legitimate debate if you consider at very least a linear perspective. Let's go back 80 years ago. That's when the Second World War finished. And really the main reason was because of the discovery of Oppenheimer and the creation of a nuclear weapon that was used from the US to Japan. And therefore the Second World War ended, obviously among many other things, but that was the breaking point. And since then, no major wars have happened, which is pretty unprecedented. Really, it's the first time in human history that some country doesn't decide to invade another one. And that school of thought of considering that having 12,000 nuclear warheads spread among nations might really mean that we're safe. Because, I mean, if one country invades another one and that country has nuclear weapons, I mean, it is over. This is the concept of mutually assured destruction, really. And not only one country to another, but for example, let's consider NATO. Let's consider the Russian Federation invades, I don't know, Germany. I mean, that would be completely nuts because theoretically, the NATO alliance states that if one country invades another one and that country invaded is part of the alliance, then all countries should respond accordingly and should defend the invaded country, which would mean basically a third world war and the United States might bomb the Russian Federation if the Russian Federation attack with nuclear missiles to Germany. That's a silly scenario, but when I mean silly, it's very unlikely that to happen, but that's the logic behind. And we say unlikely, silly today, but again, that was most of history of humankind was to invade one another. So that's out of the table, and one of the reasons, or theoretically one of the reasons, is because of that, because we have nuclear weapons. But what if I told you that that perspective won't last too long? Well, we're seeing in the table today, politics in some parts of the world is going worse, much worse. Information is not perfect. We're living in asymmetry of information in many places in the world. Polarization is much higher. AI might play quite a significant role in hacking or at least making another country think that they're being attacked by a nuclear weapon, and so on. So the mutually assured destruction narrative might have made sense some years ago, but today, as the world is as fragmented as it is, there's a lack of cooperation and trust, and there's a divergence and many tools not to have that kind of perfect information, which makes it very unlikely that humanity might survive a catastrophic event when it comes to nuclear weapons in the years ahead. Of course, we're not talking about next year or this year, which could happen, theoretically could happen today, right now. hopefully that doesn't happen, but in the coming years, decades, centuries, I mean, it's very easy, really. Imagine that an AI system delivers a message to the president, and the president basically has 5 minutes to decide the message of the AI. And the message was, come on, we're being right now about to be distracted by the country with a nuclear warhead, and the nuclear warhead might impact the biggest city where our headquarters are. And I mean, we need to decide now if we bomb the other country or not. My estimate is that is 99% truth. I mean, what are you gonna do? Most likely you will bomb the country, but maybe the AI was wrong, or maybe the AI was hacked. Or let's put another example. Let's imagine that for example, Pakistan also has nuclear weapons. I mean, the president, for whatever reason, needs to go away, and basically cannot be in power anymore because there's a civil war in the country, or there are massive protests, and a terrorist organization all of a sudden is governing the country. As a terrorist organization, to go to the most extreme level, but I could say also a party coalition that some of the parties have some extreme views, and they are in charge of the military department. Maybe they can go completely nuts and, I don't know, send a nuclear weapon to India. That's not a far-fetched scenario. And there are many more, really. You can always make a mistake, or your nuclear warhead could be sent to another country, hacked again, or the most traditional scenarios that have happened today, that there are two actors that are extremely tense, and they're really hesitating to use nuclear warheads. And currently, that's the rhetoric, the narrative in some speeches is there of the potential use of nuclear deterrence, of nuclear defense. So that's really not that unlikely in the very long run. That's why, in my opinion, the mutually assured destruction narrative doesn't make sense anymore. Of course, it won't be easy to disarm every single country because, again, there's a lack of trust. And that's the first priority, really, to have a higher operation and to continue the efforts of the Treaty of Nuclear Non-Proliferation. But it is very unlikely that all countries succeed because actually it's happening the opposite, that there's a nuclear armament in many countries in the world, and at the very least, countries are deciding not to disarm themselves. Even though, again, there was a very positive trend in the last decades, we had more warheads before, but 12,000 warheads, nuclear warheads, are more than enough to destroy 5 to 10 Earths and having a nuclear winter. So that's not good news at all, and that's why we need to embrace the concept of disarming all nuclear warheads. But really the only option to strive for is having a much more robust global governance system, having more trust between nations, and having a multilateral system that really strives for having a more prosperous humanity and eliminating some of the most catastrophic risks, including nuclear warheads, and then working towards having a civilization that really doesn't invade each other because eventually they won't have any nuclear warheads. And in my opinion, I would take that for granted because in the moment you take the first step of disarming the whole civilization, the human civilization, when it comes to nuclear warheads, then you will take for granted that once you've done such a tremendous, unprecedented achievement, then you won't go all the way as it was pre-Second World War of invading another country because they don't have a deterrence weapon. So I wouldn't worry about that. What I would worry about really is the deterrence and especially the potential negative consequences of having nuclear warheads, of making a mistake, of being hacked, or whatever reason, because that's a threat that exists today and we need to build trust and later disarm all nuclear warheads, because otherwise humanity might put an end to its existence in the short to extremely long run if we really do not disarm ourselves, because this is, as Oppenheimer created this weapon many years ago, the creation of the god of destruction, we have still the power to destruct ourselves. But hopefully that doesn't happen, and really, as we've seen in the last 80 years, we haven't done so, and hopefully that's the case forever, really, for humanity, one of the very least, in the very long run. So with that, I hope you found some optimism today in regards to this immense issue, and as always, consider subscribing to the channel if you like this kind of content. And as we say here, enjoy life, embrace your curiosity, and be the change you want to see in the world. See you in the next optimistic adventure.